and the business and the fact that my mother was a teacher in the Roosevelt School District for over 35 years and the diversity of the students that she brought together, who then became the diversity of people who knew me as I'm trying to run for a particular office. And so, and it was also great that my first foray into running for public office was in a nonpartisan role. So the city council, while I may have been a registered Democrat, it was run as a nonpartisan. So it didn't matter if you were Republican, Independent, or Democrat. That's anybody could vote for you to be that person.
That's good.
And so when you think of the fact that it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat, you want your trash emptied.
Right.
You know, when you flush the toilet, you want the
everything to go away.
Everything to go away. It doesn't matter what your political party is.
Right.
You know, when you're thinking about a street or a sidewalk and you want it smooth and you want the street lights to work, it's not a Republican light. It's not a Democratic light. It's not an independent. It's just a light.
Right.
And so much of what we did was for everyone, in spite of whether you're liberal or conservative, whether you're red or blue or, you know, whatever it is, you're doing it because you called me and told me that was your issue.
Right.
And I did not care why you brought me the problem, why you brought the problem. I understood that it was a problem for you that I needed to address and get people on action for. And that then builds the consensus. That's where you get your motivation. You find yourself leading people that you didn't know you were leading because they see that your concern is not revenge. You see that you're superficial. They see that you're not trying to separate us because of what I have and what you have. You know, I'm looking at this area and its historic houses. You have a totally different set of issues in your community north of downtown, still in my district. You on the east side have a barrio environment that has historic houses, and you have a certain set of issues that you have to address. I have the downtown. Downtown's trying to change its image.
Right.
We're trying to build a basketball arena and a baseball stadium. And people are not supportive of all of that, but I'm looking at it as jobs. I'm saying, hey, look, you may not want this globally, but I guarantee you there's a bunch of jobs that are about to happen. So I'm supporting this, and I'm all in. You know, and I go south of the river, I got a whole different set of other issues. And each person is approaching me for their particular needs. And I have to be open to all of that. I cannot be closed-minded. I have to be mentally able to shift the gears per phone call, per appointment. You know, you may be coming in about pipes that carry water in the streets, and someone else is coming in talking about the stop signs broken or the Salt River's dry. You know, what are we going to do to make it a riparian habitat? So, you know, we've got millions of dollars and billions of dollars of opportunity to change things as long as we deal with the powers that be, we get the resources available, and you have to be able to change on the fly. And then once you've done, you've got to be able to end it. You got to be able to say, I've done 10 different things today. I'm not doing 11.
I love
when
that.
I get home, I'm going to turn TV on.
And that's it.
That's it. I'm talking to the kids. I'm going to do some homework with them, you know, and that's about it. So
I love that. And so this part here about rest, do you rest?
I probably rested more when I was working than I do now as a retired person, because there's always something else going on. I'm doing podcasts with my friend Jason.
You're busy.
Yeah,
you're a high ticket, man. You're a high ticket.
I still do some pro tem work in the courts. And so that gets me out. I still do some consulting work with people who need some help with various types of projects. And so I do appreciate the importance of rest. I probably, was because one of the other things that help keep the mental stability is that I coach my kids basketball for 10 years. And I, was there at all of their football games when they played. And so we traveled, and when we went on vacations, they were either based on my conferences that I may have had to go to or their tournaments that they had to go to.
Made it work.
So we made all of it work together. We had pagers, we didn't have cell phones with bunches of tech. My first election, I had a brick, we had 2 brick phones, and so we didn't have the ability to be on call all the time. Someone can be in trouble if I leave and go on vacation and something happens immediately. Back then, there was no unrealistic expectation that you're going to immediately come back and then and try to address something that you may or may not be able to. Whereas now, the expectation is if you leave, when you left and you spent all this money, you had to have the ticket bought a month in advance. You fly somewhere, it happens while you're there. Now you got to spend thousands of dollars to try to get back just to say you're here, as opposed to saying you're here and can do something.
Right.
You could probably do as much with the technology we have from wherever you're sitting, as opposed to having to be there. But the climate, the social media, the media, the vision of it, how it looks,
the optics
of it now force you to be in an environment or do things that you really don't need to do. And that's unfair to a lot of elected officials. And I really want to distance the thought between what is an elected official versus what is a politician, because you don't have to be an elected official to be a politician. There are a lot of people who politic, and politic is trying to get people to see it your way. If you got pulled over by a police officer and you're trying to talk your way out of that ticket, you're a politician. Right there. If you're in a classroom,
I'm a terrible politician.
Yeah, well, if you're in a classroom and you're trying to get that B up to a, that C up to a B, you're in there politicking real hard, and you haven't been elected. But when you are an elected official, there are these optics where that, it's power achieved versus power perceived. What you can achieve individually and what someone perceives you can do may not always be the same thing, but they give us as elected officials a lot more benefit of the doubt that you are the elected official and therefore you have the ability to control these outcomes, whereas you still need the people
because you
can't do it. If I wasn't getting direction, if I wasn't asking the question, if people weren't saying these are the things that are the problems and this is what we like to have fixed, or this is what we like to have in our community, I would not have been able to just arbitrarily make these things up. But once they tell me what they need, now my lid is to, my goal is to take that lid off of their issue and find a way to get it done, particularly if it makes more sense. If it makes sense to everyone in a broader context. Because, you want to be as a city councilman, you may want it red, he may want it blue. I'm going to try to make it purple. So that it's a little bit painful for you, a little bit painful for him, a little love for you, a little bit of love for him, everybody gets something. But when you are a justice of the peace, when you're a judge, for 15 years, sometimes it can't be purple because the law says it has to be red or it has to be blue. And there are many, many more winners and losers when you deal in the justice system, simply because not everything can be negotiated. We try, don't get us wrong, that when there are opportunities for us to make things reasonable and say, hey, look, well, if you'll do this and you'll do this, I'll do these things, and this will be the ruling. You understand what I'm doing. And now, again, most people, it's a little more purple, but there are many times when
it is what it is.
It is what it is, and you have to do what the law says, and you didn't, and here's the outcome.
So we have a few things that kind of stirred from that point. One, being clear about what is, again, an elected official versus when you should use your ability to politic. I think that's actually a really great way of thinking about it. And when we think about mental health, we talk about pivoting. One thing you brought up really that I thought was interesting is being able to pivot. And sometimes we get caught up in the narratives of what something is, and we can't pivot from it because we have something attached to those. I can't make this street light over here because I feel like the lights are we have some type of a store. We can't move as easily or as fluidly as we need to in our lives. How do we embrace the pivot mantra? How do we embrace the ability to pivot easily? What do you have to be able to adopt fundamentally to be able to just, this is what we're doing here. We're doing this. How does that work?
I think, at least for me, it has always been about not spending more time than necessary on the why not. Why didn't this happen? Okay. You were supposed to be here at 12 and it's 12:45. Okay.
Right.
I could spend a lot of time being upset or concerned, and you could spend a lot of time telling me every reason that it happened. I got up late, my car didn't start, this didn't happen, the kids were sick, had to go here, flat tire. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff behind this wall. But what I'm really interested in is, now that you're here 45 minutes late,
what can we get done?
I still need to get this done. You're supposed to be here at 12 so we can do this. You're here at 12:45. We still need to do this. Okay. Yep. So whatever that was, I mean, you want to waste another 10 minutes telling me why it didn't happen. And it's not going to change the fact that you didn't get here at that time.
And this still needs to get done.
And it still needs to get done. So Jason, stop telling me about why you weren't here at 12, because that's many times first thing you're telling me out the box.
Yep.
If you let me speak first, I'm like, hey man, I'm fine, I'm glad you're here. We still need to get this done. I'm not even thinking about what had happened. I'm not worried about what the car. I'm happy you're alive. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad you didn't have an accident, and I'm happy for the fact that we are here right now.
And we can,
and I may not have the full amount of time to give you anymore.
Right.
But I am going to take what's time is left and get you as much as I can, and then I got to go.
Right.
But you just have to understand that I got to go. Because
you manage this
because this is what it is. And so so instead of again, it happens all the time. You see it at every level, particularly as a judge. I see so many individuals come before us, and I often ask questions. Well, so what were you thinking? Because I'm trying to understand why you were driving 20 miles over the speed limit, which is criminal speed, in an HOV lane by yourself between 3 and 6, 4 and 6 in the morning, 6 and 7 in the morning, and you are driving while your license is suspended. So I'm trying to understand what you were thinking, because if I understand what you were thinking at the time, now I'm going to understand how to address the charges you have, and we can rectify this issue. But many times I've had people say, well, I don't know. And so my question is so had you ever thought about getting up 30 minutes earlier? Did you know you didn't have a driver license? Yes. Did you know it was illegal to drive one car in the HOV? Yes. Did you know that driving over speed limit 20 miles was criminal? Yes, I did. I said, well, did it ever dawn on you that if you had gotten up 30 minutes earlier and left 30 minutes sooner,
you wouldn't have to do
that you could have driven in the middle of the freeway and at speed limit and got there on time? I never thought about that. And I can't tell you how many people who have told me I never thought about that. And that became sort of my mantra going through from councilman to black chamber president to judge, is I hear the phrase, I never thought about that. And I know I had never thought about that. And I can't. And so I became very quickly of the opinion and of the thought process that no, not everybody does think the way you think, or think outside the box, or think about the possibilities, or think about lids coming off. They're very myopic. They're very focused on the things that are affecting them right now. And instead of considering the big picture, which is to me very mentally relaxing. I mean, because when you think about thousands of possibilities, your mind is working on things that aren't depressive. You're
Yes.
thinking about, but when you're thinking about one thing and that one thing is not going right, then everything is depressive. Everything is bad. The mental state does not stay healthy because the one thing you are really focused and caring about is not working right. And so now everything around you, the people are affected by your mental state.
Yeah, and your energy.
And
like
your energy is down because you're so focused on the one thing. But if you could just take a walk, if you could just go shoot ball with your kids or throw, the ball at a bat for them, or if you could walk your dog or, throw frisbee
Just
so that
get
they could
out,
go
do-
and
right.
just, and that's just outside doing
Right.
something. But you could think of thousands. You could help with churches. You could go help at the food bank. You could do anything other than
Focus on
this one thing that's bad. And so when I ask that question, I'm really trying to see, am I speaking to someone who's thinking about the bigger picture, or am I talking to someone who is really focused on one thing and one thing only? And that then helps me address the situations, recidivism, and all these other things that how can I keep you from doing these things again? I got you. You got this. Not, you're not here because you're a bad person. You're here because you broke these laws.
Right.
And I'm not mad at you. I'm just a judge. I'm just here to address the issues that you have. Now we can talk about how you deal with these issues, but we can also talk about how you don't do these things again. But I can't do that if I'm not sure where your
mental state is at, where you're at. Man, I mean, so I hope that you took some feedback from this. The ideas of leadership, the ideas of mental health in leadership apply to all of us. None of us are immune to this. The idea that we can think outside the box, that we can ask questions, that we can build a team of people that can help us better operationalize the things that are important to us. Those things are important. Some of the greater takeaways that I think really solidify this conversation about leadership and mental health is that, one, we have to be able to see something bigger than what we have. Two, we have to believe and understand that we can't do it by ourselves. And three, our focus is everything. What we focus on will we manifest more of. And to your point, when we think about how important it is to pivot, we have to be able to pivot quickly. So that means that we have to be able to focus on the overall, the big picture, the long-term goal. And if we don't know what we want, that goal is nebulous. We'll never even go anywhere. And so we go all the way back to, what do you want?
Yeah.
Right? What do you want? And we're, to close this, I want to ask that question. How important is that simple question? And how have you had to answer that question in your career as you've continued to evolve?
Well, when you think about it, when I think about that question, I think about relationships. Yeah. And I think about the problems that, as a judge, that I addressed with domestic violence and shootings and weapons and
Right.
people, suicide, murder-suicide situations. Too many times we don't ask the question, what is it that we want in the relationship? And where we become, when we don't ask those questions, we latch on to those things that we think are important and we don't let go. And we don't realize that not every relationship is the right relationship. Not every, yes, divorce happens, and divorce can be healthy because if you are not in the right place, you can 100%. Right. And you don't need to go down with the ship. You need to stay healthy in all of your relationships, So if you think you're in love and the love falls apart, that's not a reflection on you. That just means it's time to go see if someone else can love you more and you can love them more. Say that, it's a reset button. Right. It's not an end all. It's not jump off, it's not to jump off the building. It's not to, if I can't have you, I don't want anybody else to have you. That is the scariest reality in the world. It's like there are too many of us. There is it's not just one person for everybody. There's thousands of people that can be for you. But you have to give yourself the chance
and the
to be in the permission to
Right.
be there. You can't put everything on that person. You can't blame this person for not wanting to be with you. And then because you can't have that person, you want to harm them, beat them, kill them, and then kill yourself. Because in a way, and I don't know, this may be controversial to some, but certain times when you have that mindset, when you're there,
That all or nothing,
that is the most selfish mindset you can be in, because you're preparing to take yourself and someone else away from all of the love that's around you. The parents, the daughters, the children, the families, the co-workers. There are hundreds of people who care about you regardless of what relationship status is, regardless of how you feel with that individual. So let that person go on to live their new life, and let this support group, the people who love you and care about you, help you transition into your next set of realities.
Wow.
And that way, when you pivot, you're pivoting in a positive direction. You're not losing you're not losing yourself. And that's sort of where I go as I think about that question. Again, hopefully I answered it.
Yeah.
But that's where I start from. And that's how, when I do my court work, that's when I talk to people, from a relationship stuff, and they're asking me advice. That's where I'm always going from. What's going to be the most positive outcome for you and the individuals that you care about and that you call your friends
and your community. Right. I love that. See, and here's when I love that, because one of the things that when we talk about mental health, that fear of rejection, right? Like that
Correct.
idea that, I can't suffer any more rejection, because it just, and where it steeps from whether your family, your parents rejected you, or the idea that rejection is a bad thing. I think that's the misnomer.
I agree.
Right. I think that if we can challenge any narrative, it will be that rejection is actually a good thing. Right. It's an opportunity for you to say that there's something better out there. That's how I usually framed it.
And think about it from this perspective. And the same is true for my elections as it is for a presidential election. Okay. You've got this many people who live in the country.
Right.
You've got this many people who are registered voters.
Yep.
You've got this many people who are Democrats and this many people who are Republicans. And at the end of the day, this is how many people elected the president. Okay. Now, that means this individual has been rejected by more people than actually voted for him.
Yep.
But in his case, and certainly in mine, when I never won 100% of the vote. If you win a 55 to 45 election, that's a blowout.
You're killing, right?
That's considered a blowout.
A landslide.
A landslide. So a 49-51, that's slim.
Right.
But if you step in and you treat it as though I'm here to represent you all, regardless of who voted for me, I now use rejection as my motivation. I have something more to prove now. I have more people to win over. And then my next election, I win by 3,500 votes instead of 160. I win by a whole lot more because I've gone out and I busted my butt to do better. Well, the same thing holds true when you're dealing with those relationships. If it didn't work, it didn't work.
Right.
It's not the end of the world. You're not a bad person because it didn't work. You're just not the person that person wanted to be with, or she wasn't the person that you needed to have.
Right.
And we've all had the social media world we live in defines people differently. It allows you to be bullied. It allows you to be teased. It allows you to have your emotions thrown asunder over and over again.
It's
without even knowing the person. You've got people who
you
don't deal with.
Bullies, right? Have no idea who they are.
Who you know who they are. And I'm in the courtroom. They're asking me for order of protection against people they don't know, and we can't give it to them. And they want to blame the person who they just broke up with, who's mad at them, who's telling their friends to say these things. But there's no evidence that we can say. If you are 1289 at JLYW number 22,
who is that?
Who is that? And so we have, we have limits to how we can affect. You got to turn off, stop watching the social media, get a new account.
Right.
change your phone numbers.
There's some self-prevention, some
do
self
some of
things,
these things, because what I can give you, I will. This person, if they're doing these things, no, they can't come near you. No, they can't call you. They can't email, text you. But having someone be their go-to, their avatars, they go ahead and be the people who say bad things about you. That's when you have to, you have to say, that's not me. And no matter what you're saying, that's not who I am. And, I don't care what you say about me. It happens. And that's where, when you talk about rejection, if you haven't been rejected, you haven't been really trying. If you haven't been told no, you haven't been, trying.
Yes,
if you're trying,
Einstein,
there's your Einstein theory. If you're not out there having it fail,
you're trying anything new.
You're not trying anything new. If you're not, people are upset. I had people, no, this is not going to work. Well, I understand, and I may lose you as a constituent, but this is my belief that it will. And that's why I was elected, because I have these beliefs and I'm going to have this vision. I'm taking this lid off and we're going to try to work it out. A year later, 2 years later, everything works out fine. Sometimes you'll have that person say, man, I never believed that was going to happen. But you said it would, and it did. And, you'll have my support forever. And sometimes it doesn't, it didn't happen the way it was supposed to, and you don't vote for me. So that's what you risk, but you have to be prepared to risk it if you're going to lead, if you're going to be out front, if you're going to be the person that's going to take the first bullets, because the pen is mightier than the sword. Many times that media is beating you down, and not because of what you did, but because of what you didn't do.
Or who you're affiliated with.
Right, or who you're affiliated with, So I would much rather you beat me up for me trying. I'd rather try and fail than to sit there and do nothing, because I'm afraid that if I do something that doesn't go right, I'm going to lose the election. I'm going to lose my vote. I got 4 years, and I have 4 years to get 4 more. And that's the way I lived it. I'm going to bust my butt for these 4, bust my foot in these 4, and then the rest is history, which then set about all of the other things that I was able to do because of the work that I was willing to put in, and the failures that I was willing to deal with when they came.
And I think that that's such a powerful reminder for all of us, that you have to step out. Right. If you can't let fear define how far you want to go in this world, you just can't. That's not going to be a precursor. And also that we can, individually, we can. We are capable of doing this. I mean, the question about showing up in leadership and mental health, I think we've got a really clear understanding of what that is. And I appreciate you so much, Judge Cody Williams, for your time. I really appreciate you making the time to share that idea with us and dive into the specifics of what does it mean? Like, how do we show up as a leader in our everyday lives? And so thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And what I will say to our listeners, thank you for listening in. If you've listened all the way to the end, there is a worksheet that is going to be prepared for you at the end of our episodes. They're going to talk about the activities and thoughts and framework that we've discussed in this episode. So do feel free to sign up, log in, download it. It's free. Look at it, use it. And if you love it, great. It's going to be in the podcast link or the QR code link, like right here. Maybe up there, but maybe closer to there, but around that area. But I want to say mental health is important to me because the journey that I've taken, I want to be better. Like I have all the reasons to say I shouldn't be, but that's not enough. I want to be better. And so being able to get perspective and context from people that are proven and have gotten results makes me feel I can do it too. I got a lot more. I got a lot more work to do, but I think I can get there.
You are well on your way, my friend. Well on your way.
You know what? Thank you, and it's been an absolute pleasure, Cody.
My pleasure.
We will see each other again for sure. Because this is going to be like a part 3, 4, 5. There's levels because we're talking about our focus, and then that talks about why we focus on certain things, and then there's a whole different narrative there. We have conversations around the structure of the home. So there's a lot. But that said, I want to say this has been, if left unchecked, I'm your host, Jason Gillette. It's been a pleasure. Tune in with us next week. We got another episode just like this one, and we will see you then. Take care of your mind. Bye.